Hello everyone, my name is Amanda and I'm doing this video for a class project, and my topic is online dating and racism. Specifically, we'll be talking about experiences that people have had on online dating sites, encounters they've had with racism either through comments or messaging, and we'll be talking about racial preference and if this is a form of racism or if it's simply a preference. Our assignment was to choose a topic that we feel people may need to be a little bit more educated on, and then to create a plan for how to do that and present the information to a group and see their reactions. And you're the group I'm presenting to. So after you watch the video, please comment below and let me know your opinions, your reactions, and maybe even if you have some experiences that you'd like to share. So to find out if people were experiencing racism on online dating sites, I created a survey and asked them just that. Have you had any of these experiences? And if so, could you give me some examples and tell me about what happened to you? And I posted this survey on Facebook and Reddit and Craigslist. I posted it on YouTube videos that were around the same topic and just asked people to kind of tell me their stories. I also asked them if they think that it's common on the sites, not just in their own experiences, but, is it prevalent on the sites kind of in general, and what they thought that we could maybe do to help reduce those instances. So looking over my survey answers, I found pretty much what I expected to find. White people were generally unaware of any racist comments or profiles, and people of color said that they found racism to be fairly common on dating sites. Many people of color experience frequent racist comments and messages on these sites, and a few examples that I obtained from my survey were: a female was asked by a male user to wear yoga pants on our first date to show off my big butt. A biracial white and Arab woman mentions that she was called a terrorist and various racial slurs, as well as, quote, demands I tell people my real ethnicity. She stated that men have sent her messages saying that they, quote, feel bad for me for being trapped in a controlling religion. And multiple other women mentioned being fetishized for their race, receiving comments like, I love Latinas, and I've never been with an Indian girl. In case you're not aware, to fetishize means to make something the object of a sexual fetish. So when you're fetishizing a person's race, you're turning that person into an object. And in response to the final question on my survey, which was, how do you think we could lessen the occurrence of racist comments, one woman wrote, unfortunately, it's something that would probably be impossible to prevent completely. But in regards to the people who fetishize certain races, it would be nice to have someone explain to them that in their mind that something that could be thought of as a compliment could actually be extremely degrading. I completely agree with this statement, and I agree, someone should say it, so I will. If you have ever said anything like, I love blank men and women, or something like, Asian women are so great because they're petite and docile, or you're really hot for a black guy, these are not compliments. You're fetishizing, stereotyping, and degrading an entire race, not to mention the person that you're directing this so-called compliment at. So one theme that I saw throughout my survey was the mention of racial preferences. And what was interesting to me was the fact that some people pointed out that they believed this was a form of racism, but about half said that they waved it off just as a personal preference. What do you think? Is racial preference in dating a form of racism? Many people say no. Most say that they date primarily within their race because they don't have anything in common with people of other races. Or they say that they don't have a preference at all and they just happen to have never dated anyone outside of their race. Some think it's like preferring blondes over brunettes. But what do the stats say? Do the facts say that racial preference in dating is a form of racism? Researchers say absolutely. From OkCupid to Yahoo, personals to Match, digital romance sites and apps do something that's become socially unacceptable everywhere else: discriminate against other people because of their race. Profiles on Tinder, Grindr, and other sites are littered with comments like no blacks, no Asians, and even stereotyping food references like no rice or no curry. All of these are wiped clean of racist consequences with the disclaimer, no offense, it's just my preference. But take any of those quotes offline and put them in a storefront window, and we've jumped back 70 years. As one survey pointed out, people think racism is overt and don't understand how making a statement like, I'm just not attracted to X race, or I'm only attracted to X race, is racist. Another participant stated, I think racist comments are common, and they are not noticed because they are used under the guise of sexual preference or desire. I'm sure some of you are still saying, but it is just preference, like preferring blondes over brunettes. But there is a difference here. You may prefer blondes, but you would not go out with somebody just because their hair is brown. When people say no blacks, that's usually what they mean. They will not date a black person. This idea of racial preference in the dating world actually has a name. It's called sexual racism. Now, many people have a problem with this term because they think calling a preference racist is a bit harsh. Not to mention that most people with racial preferences do not want to be and do not consider themselves racist. Let's look at this another way. Would you prefer to hire someone of your same race? No? Why? Because it's racist. Would you prefer to sit next to somebody of your own race? No. Why? Because it's racist. Would you prefer to date somebody of your own race? Yes. Why? Because that's your preference? What if I told you that 3 researchers conducted a study called, Is Sexual Racism Really Racism? And the answer they found is yes. They gave 2,000 men a discrimination index test and then had them complete an online survey about race and dating. And they found that sexual racism is closely associated with generic racist attitudes, which challenges the idea of racial attraction as solely a matter of personal preference. Sexual racism, turns out, is probably just plain old racism in disguise. Still not convinced? On examination of OkCupid's data, Christian Rudder, the founder of the immensely popular dating site, found that there's very little variation in how people of different races match up with each other based on the site's algorithm, which analyzes their interests and spits out a score showing their compatibility. There is a tight correlation between how well 2 people match each other and how likely they are to message each other back and forth. Yet, response rates across racial lines diverge widely. What does this mean? Well, it means that if a person is matched with 2 nearly identical users, they're most likely going to pick the user of the same race that they are. So if you're one of those people I mentioned earlier that says they don't date outside of their race because they don't have any common interests, sorry. Let me give you one more thing to think about. If sexual racism isn't really racism, then why do the stats match up so well with racial stats in the non-dating world? Let's back up. When you think about the racial and gender hierarchy of America, who ranks where? We can probably all agree that white males kind of dominate the top. And statistically speaking, black women are on the bottom rung when it comes to equality. Guess who gets the most responses on dating sites? And guess who gets the least responses on dating sites? Let's look at it from another angle. Asian Americans have been more fully integrated into mainstream white America than black Americans. As a result, Asian Americans are less likely to be shot by cops, to be turned down for a job because of their race, to get a long prison sentence for a crime, or to be poor. Guess who gets more responses? Dating racism or sexual racism reflects societal racism. This means sexual racism is racism. So what does all of this mean? Well, it means that a lot of people are more racist than they thought. But there is hope. As with racism IRL, sexual racism is based on ignorance and fear. As one survey so aptly pointed out, I think ignorance is the problem. People fear that what they don't know. If you've never met someone who is Muslim, for instance, you might think they are all one way, and of course they aren't. Sociologist Kevin Lewis agrees. When he studied OkCupid's trends in their users' habits, he noticed that people's preferences changed over time. After an OkCupid user received a message from a person of a different race or ethnicity, their interactions with other people of that race or ethnicity had a tendency to skyrocket. After that first interracial contact, a person would, on average, increase their interactions with people of that race by 115%. So go on, message someone of a different race. Heck, go on a date with them. I swear it won't be awful. Well, actually, I can't promise that because this is actually online dating that we're talking about. But seriously, go expand your dating pool and meet new people that just happen to look a little different from you. You may learn something, and you'll be a little less of a dick. Think of it this way. Remember when you were a kid and everyone with glasses got picked on and teased and called four eyes? And then remember when you grew up and everyone on the planet started wearing fake glasses because everyone realized that nerdy is hot? This is the same thing. You're just stuck in the land of ignorance. Grow up. Realize that everyone is beautiful, regardless of the color of their skin. Thank you so much for watching, and again, please comment below and give me your thoughts and opinions, and share any experiences that you'd like. Thank you!